discussions on topics affecting Hawaii's youth, ohana, and community.
Aloha mai kako! Welcome again to another segment of Kukakuka. My name is Venus Rossetti Medeiros, and I will be your host for our show. Now remember, Kukakuka, respectful discussion. Today, we are talking about sex trafficking and human trafficking programs and resources here in Hawaii. So with me, I have these three lovely ladies. This is Victoria Rowland, and Victoria is with Susanna Wesley. I also have Rochelle Vindinha, and she is with the prosecuting office, but she is Honolulu's human trafficking coordinator. And then I also have here Mrs. Tammy Bitanga, who is with Ho'ola Napua, and she's with our community programs there. So we're gonna vala'au, we're gonna talk story with these ladies and just find out what's happening in our community. Now, last time we spoke, we had two wonderful guests who told us their stories about sex trafficking and their own personal experiences. So this segment, we really wanted to find out from these ladies what kind of programs are out there. What are we providing for our children, our youth, and our women and men too? You know, we have boys who are also sex trafficked. Like, what are we doing here in Hawaii to help protect them? So I'm going to turn it over to Victoria right now. So once again, Victoria Rowland, who is the administrator for Susanna Wesley.
Yes,
right?
yes, and the Trafficking Victim Assistance Program.
There we go.
Thank you, Venus. So with Susanna Wesley as the statewide program administrator, we do support all the neighbor islands as well, but the majority of our work is providing comprehensive case management services and responding to particularly crises, working with the task force, which Rochelle will probably tell you more about, working with community partners as well. Tammy will speak to that as well. But not only do we work with victims and survivors of sex trafficking, but we also work with our partners at Legal Aid Society for our labor trafficked. So we do cover ages, all ages, minors, children, teenagers, adults, young adults, men, women. We have a large population within the LGBTQ Mahu community as well. And yeah, we have a small piece of the work dedicated also to providing therapeutic support. So we have an in-house clinician, and we also partner with some subcontracting agencies to provide that if we can't in-house. So a full array of services just to kind of meet them where they're at on their journey, but also hopefully move them forward and stay out of this kind of victimization that they're in.
So Victoria, you mentioned that you work with all ages. How are you getting your participants?
Sure. We are an agency contracted to receive referrals from DHS, the Child Welfare Services, and we also have a hotline. And our hotline addresses more of the adult population, obviously because they don't have the hotline with Child Welfare Services. So we could talk about that too, just to make sure everyone has both hotline numbers as well. And then through the task force, we also get referrals through some law enforcement investigations or arrests.
So what was your youngest age?
So we do get referrals, and not all the time would they be a victim of sex trafficking. Sometimes they'd be victims of sex assault. If they are, I guess, qualified and eligible to receive the type of case management services, which a big bulk of it includes advocacy. We've had some reports of children under the age of 10, sometimes under the age of 7, but for the most part, they don't need as much intensive case management per se as our teenagers, young adults, and our adults.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate, but it happens.
Right, and you hear it all the time. We don't have this problem here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I obviously could attest to that. Everyone here can attest to that, or we wouldn't have a client base, and we wouldn't have good funders to provide us the funding that we need to provide those services.
Right.
Yeah.
Mahalo. Yeah. Rochelle, can you share a little bit about what's happening with human trafficking and the task force?
Yes, thank you, Venus. And first of all, mahalo for having us here to share some information about this very important topic here in our community. So we have a group. We have a group here in our community who various entities. Our task force is comprised of various law enforcement entities. We have local law enforcement, our local police department. We have Homeland Security. We have FBI involved with our task force. We also have different military, our different military law enforcement, and we work very closely with our service providers and others in our community it's really a collaborative effort. We come together and kind of like share resources. We powwow. We think about the best way we can work as a team to combat trafficking here in our community. And as a task force, we operate in a victim-centered, trauma-informed manner, which really means that the victim calls the shots. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It's really, I guess, almost like a success for us if we're able to identify a victim who is willing to receive services. And we really, in terms of law enforcement and investigations, those really kind of take sit on the back burner for a bit until a victim is ready to speak with law enforcement, because it is very difficult for victims of trafficking to share their experiences and to speak with law enforcement.
Right. So Rochelle, have we made any prosecution?
So we recently had a prosecution, a very successful prosecution actually. That case was generated years ago, however. There was a delay in getting the case to trial, but it was a successful prosecution where a trafficker, I believe he got 40 years, a 40-year sentence, which is amazing.
Yes.
And what that basically says is that we're here, we're ready to prosecute traffickers, and our courts are ready to sentence traffickers, because that's we're really happy with that sentence, and especially happy that we were able to get some justice, for the victims.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that message needs to get across, right? That we're not going to put up with sex traffickers, and we will prosecute.
We will prosecute, and we do have our law enforcement, they're on it. They're picking up tips, they're following up, they're actively working on investigations, and we often kind of roundtable with service providers and with law enforcement and other attorneys, because we also have in our task force attorneys with the Attorney General's office, with the U.S. Attorney's office. So we really have a great group. As a group, I think we're able to kind of handle anything that comes our way, because
that's great.
When we work together, we can do it.
Right.
We're here.
So Rochelle, one more thing I wanted to ask you, at the task force, are there any recent initiatives that you guys have done that you can share?
Recent initiatives. Can you think of anything, Victoria?
That's come out of the task force?
We get together on a regular basis. So in terms of moving things forward here in our community, what we have done is we've come up with protocols on how to handle confidential information, on how to as a group, how we were going to respond to tips that are received. We work closely with our investigators on the best way to move forward with a case. So there's been a lot of progress in terms of the task force. We try our best to get out there in the community, again, to help people be aware that it does exist here, because often, like you mentioned earlier, Venus, people just think that it doesn't happen here, because it really is a hidden crime. It's going on all around us, but we don't really see it unless you know what you're looking for. So I know that part of our task force mission as well is to get out there in the community and help people to recognize it and to know who to call and how to report it.
Oh, my ka'i, perfect. And you Tammy, share a little bit about Ho'olanapua, what you're doing in the community. I know you're the director of programs, right? Community programs, and then also Pro Haven.
Where to begin? So Ho'olanapua has been around since 2013 when the founder put together this nonprofit locally for the prevention of sex trafficking of our children and providing care for those who have been exploited. And, you know, with that being said, it took a good long time to get Pro Haven built. So in the meantime, it was community awareness. So awareness with a purpose. Most times we're going to go into a community and we're going to be like, okay, what is sex trafficking? What does that look like? What is awareness? And a lot of times people are misunderstanding smuggling, kidnapping with sex trafficking. So we have to break it down and have that conversation of sex trafficking 101, which we have done pretty well, but also our partners have done it well too. And our community partners, such as Susanna Wesley and the prosecutor's office, I think that when you asked the question earlier about what initiatives have we taken, it is Rochelle has created a place where we can all have a seat at the table, including survivors, including victims, including service providers, so that we are all talking about the same thing in the same way, so that we're collaborating out in the community. So with that being said, when Ho'olanapua started, then people are identifying victims and survivors, and now what? So providing care for them, Starfish Mentoring Program was birthed, because that is where you either learn from your mistakes or you learn from your mentor. And a lot of times our young, especially the young people, don't have that good, trusting adult in their life. So having a mentor, we serve boys and girls. We serve all the way up to age 24. So if we can get to them then preventively before trafficking happens, they might be high risk. So not all of our clients, not all of our participants have been trafficked. Many of them have been exploited in a different type of way. Early childhood sexual abuse is huge. It's a very huge vulnerability. So if we can catch it before, then we're doing that. Also our Hoku program, that's a program that goes into facilities across the state, I would say, because we are on Hawaii Island as well. And that teaches resiliency, that teaches protective factors, self-care, healthy relationships, all these types of things, right? That our parents teach us, our grandparents teach us. I know that we say, if you take care of the aina take care of you, right? Mm-hmm. If we take care of our village takes care of us. So that's pretty much how the Hoku program is out there doing. And then Pro Haven, of course, is the baby of Ho'olanapua. So serving 11 to 17-year-olds, specialized residential treatment facility, blah, 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 blah. That's like a tongue tire. And I have a list, but I'm just gonna keep on rolling here. So there it is trauma-informed care for children who've experienced severe behavioral trauma, like severe trauma. It's not like, oh, you was bad girl, so you're gonna go Pro Haven. No, that's not why. You suffered some severe trauma, and Pro Haven is a place to heal. So there's lots and lots of program therapy at Pro Haven to help heal the trauma. The environment itself is healing. If you go there, and I think all of us have been there.
Yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
Just the land there was set apart for youth way back in the day, and so having it there again for the youth of Hawaii is really important. And I'm just again grateful to be here among colleagues, and putting survivors in the center of the conversation is super important. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we've learned over time, that we don't tell people what they need, we ask them to tell us what they need.
I love that. Yeah. Now you have a certain population. You said 17 and a half, but they are young people who identify female, right?
Yeah, so at Pro Haven, we can serve 11 to 17 identifying female, our specialized treatment license that covers the female identifying. And of course, there are things, and I'm not going to speak on that. We do have a program director at Pearl Haven that could speak more in detail on that. But it's really to serve the female population. And I understand and I know that boys are trafficked too. And I hope that our community, I've said this before, that when the girls feel safe, when they are talking about what is happening to them and the boys are seeing that, I mean, we often have boys asking, well, how come we don't get to do hoku in different facilities where there's boys and girls? So now there are some facilities that we serve the boys in, and we're hoping that more facilities will allow us in to serve the boys, because that is, again, helping build up that safety factor for them. That
Great. So, like, if someone wanted to access your program, right, Victoria, or even want to join the task force, I don't know if there's community, you know, invitations where they can come and jump in and listen in, like fly on the wall, or like with Ho'olanapua, like how can they access if they want you guys to come and speak or talk about what's going on?
Well, I know for Susanna Wesley, we do have our link on our page specifically geared towards the Trafficking Victim Assistance Program.
And what is your page?
Yeah, it's see, thank you. Go back to the internet. Yes.
Is it SusannaWesley.com or?
Well, you can. Yes, it is SusannaWesley.org. Excuse me.
.org.
.org. Yes, as a nonprofit. But I think TVAP is tvaphawaii.org.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that kind of gives you the numbers to the hotlines, because I know a lot of people, they want to help, right? And everyone has their distinct role. Just like we talked about our roles, but we also said how we collaborate and how it works when we know our role, and then we can kind of hand off in that warm or hot, in that kind of way, right? So we have our hotline number that is 24/7. Someone would call that. Ironically, someone called before we started this taping. So it shows you that it's happening. Like, how real was that, right? And then the other part is if it's an emergency or if they're looking for another type of resource, some of those conversations can be there. But the majority of the victims that are minors, we still do have to go through, which is not a have to, but it's the most appropriate, safe way, is to report it to the Human Trafficking Hotline with Child Welfare. And that is 832-19999. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, awesome.
And then what about the task force? Like, how can someone get involved, or is it a closed task force?
Well, so what's interesting is a lot of people get to the task force through, you know, they contact me via, you know, referrals, whether it be from, you know, Susanna Wesley, Ho'olanapua, our law enforcement, to actually, we've actually had some people reach out and say that they were interested in maybe presenting, you know, something, presenting and sharing information with our task force. And generally what we do at that point is we have a core group in our task force, and basically the core group meets on a regular basis and basically makes the bigger decisions on the path, I guess, the task force will take in terms of membership, in terms of community presentations and protocols and stuff, and then that trickles down then to the rest of the task force. And even when we share what we decide with the rest of the task force, of course, we're open, right, to comments and discussion about everything. That's just the common way that we work things out. I also get contacted. So the task force is headed by the Honolulu Prosecuting Attorney's Office. So we've received inquiries via our webpage as well. We just have like a general, so you know, people kind of just write in if they have questions or concerns about trafficking, and if we receive information from those inquiries, we do what we can to follow up. If we think it's a situation where a referral could be made to service providers, we reach out. So it really is this constant kind of communication, figuring out who's reaching out, what the need is, and then kind of taking it from there. You know, again, because we have I think pretty much anything we need on our task force is someone we can
That's
reach
great.
out to. So
what's
it's
your
great.
webpage if somebody wanted to? Oh, okay. I didn't. I didn't prepare them for the webpage.
It's going to be at the end on the slide, like going down the rolling film, all of the web pages.
Just Google.
I'm
That'll
sure.
work.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Honolulu Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and we receive inquiries through.
Yeah.
through there
And we
as
have like
well.
almost like 50 members from different
Wow.
agencies, law enforcement.
Does somebody from Kipa coming?
Yes.
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 Yeah, and as
Absolutely.
Tammy shared, we have survivors as well. So we really want to make sure that as a working group, we do have the perspective of all, and especially actually survivors. We want to make sure that what we're doing in terms of investigations is something that's going to be actually beneficial and
Right.
and something that will be well received by survivors. So we really are open to input, and
That's
that's
great.
kind of again how we direct.
And it's a tight
force.
community, like all, right? All of the programs, like it really is a kako thing, right? Everyone works together. Everyone knows each other. Yeah,
And that's
I
why
love that.
really we connect. Other people connect with us through us. Like we just email one another and link people up to us, and then we kind of take the ball and run with it. So again, it's really us, working together as a team.
Right. Like I know Ho'olanapua, you guys come to Kipa. Yeah, you're mentors, and they work with our youth as well. So how can someone access your program?
So I failed to mention our education and training work. We do a lot of that. So we love to go into schools, youth groups, any industry. And when we think about it, sex trafficking happens everywhere. And so we can't say, oh, that industry, no need, right? So one time, I'll just give you an example. I'm not going to out her, but anyway. Somebody invited me to the tattoo convention. I just tell one small story. And I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna go there and put Ho'olanapua and put our table and our information out, because no, not at the tattoo convention.
And what's wrong with tattoos?
Yes, exactly, right? Exactly.
Cacao.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she says, Tammy, none of us want children to be exploited and trafficked. And I was like, oh, okay, yes, we will be there. And we shared a table and our information was out. So from that day on, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know about this. Everybody needs to know about this issue. And education is super important. Prevention education is important. Training hotels, staff, and anybody, truck drivers, Hawaiian Electric, the telephone company, everybody, right? Because that's all your frontline people that are going to be seeing things. The mailman, right? These types of things need to be in the whole community.
I love at the airport, right? There's all that posters now, every bathroom stall. I mean, I love that we're getting the word out. We're leaving numbers, call this number if you suspect, right?
And I think what Tammy was also emphasizing too is that we have to empower our community to be able to, one, know the signs, know and be aware, and then feel comfortable and confident in calling and reporting, and then knowing who to, sometimes it is just that one person that you had in contact at the tattoo convention. She came to the table. She said, I'm going to remember, I'm going to call Tammy. Because we get those phone calls. We get that person that a year later is like, I met you at the convention. I just need to know what to do. Who should I call? Is this trafficking? Is this something that, I should report, and sort of get that conversation going, because it is the community. If we can't, we're not eyes on 24/7 at on everything, right? And we can do presentations and all day long, but if who we're presenting doesn't have the empowerment to make the phone call or reach back out to ask more questions, then what kind of work are we doing? Right?
Yeah, we all have to own it, right? We all have to take care of our keiki. So knowing the signs are really, really important. Could you share some of the things, some of those signs with us?
Yeah, sure. I can start and then
Yeah.
you fill in, please. Fill in. I think for me, I really want to hone in. If Tammy's going to do it too, it's really good too. But I really want to hone on the online exploitation piece. I know Rochelle and the task force talk about it all the time. It is tricky. You're not going to see that trafficker exploiter. We don't have control of like educating the parents enough to monitor it or understand what their child or teenagers are going through. I mean, even young adults. You know, we're too trusting as a people. Right? So the online exploitation and the grooming and the manipulation, it's so hard to get ahead of. And then it's also hard to catch those people. So one of the signs is what we talk about all the time. I know it sounds redundant and crazy, but like for real, like if you're a teenager and you have 2 phones, like why? Because I don't even want 2 phones. Like I got my personal, and then I got my work phone. You know, sometimes we have a crisis phone. One of them is for business, right? And if it's not, it's still something secretive that they can't have on their personal phone, right? And then just the access that they have. Why do they need all the apps on their phones? Or why are they having access to certain sites that are for adults that they shouldn't be, i.e. OnlyFans, i.e. Facebook. Facebook was created for college students, which were adults. Okay, I remember you had to have like a whole education EDU account or something to that degree, right? And then the kids will tell you all the time too. They're like, oh, that's for old people, you know? So then why are you on Facebook dating? Did y'all know there was dating marketplace on Facebook?
No.
You can buy stuff and you can date people and find your next partner.
A marketplace?
On Facebook,
Marketplace?
there's a dating. It's a separate dating sort of, yeah. So that's one area that I like to overemphasize. I mean, you won't see the clear signs, but I think that's like knowing your kid or knowing your mentee or knowing your little Hanai sister or something. Yeah. So it's a little easy.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, right? I mean, it really is. Dating nowadays, and how do you get a date? Like, what's a date? Oh, I don't know. It's when you go to eat McDonald's. No, it's not. You get money. So when we're talking about it, right, like really knowing the lingo and knowing, and it could be a date where you go to eat McDonald's, right? Like that's real. So I think as a community, this is demand driven. If we don't change the culture today and we don't start educating people that buying sex is not okay, buying people is not okay, and we get into, I mean, I could go down that whole rabbit trail of consent, and I could go down that whole rabbit trail of work is work, but if we don't stop and really think about it culturally, like how are we allowing this in our community? How are we accepting it? It's a slippery slope. Like there's so many places that are normal. Like my grandpa went in, my dad went in, my brothers go in, my friends go in, my sisters go in. I mean, you go to that club, and then we go to that club, and then we go to that club. And it's so normalized. And nobody thinks twice about the person that's working there. Do they really want to be there? What is really going on? And so if we can, like, as a community, start realizing and start asking those questions of the people that are working in those places, then I think we can really change the culture. And really educate people, because there is a need, and as humans, there's an innate need to, I probably said that wrong, I'm not a clinician or whatever, but like to be wanted, to be loved, to be accepted, to have basic needs. If it means that I have to do this and that to get my basic need met, something's wrong with our communities, something's wrong with our society, right? And so I think, I don't know where I'm going with that. Maybe Rochelle would like to take over now.
I mean, and that is exactly, thank you. I mean, that is exactly kind of where it starts, because that's what drives it, right? And that's exactly who our online predators or our traffickers would target, those who have a need, right? And what we're seeing online is something as easy as offering a cell phone, or just something, because it can be anything of value in exchange for sex. Is commercial sexual exploitation of a minor. And what we see is exchanging, I have Gucci shades, that in exchange for sex, a cell phone. They know they target on those children who are vulnerable and who, who are maybe not even lacking something physically, but there is a need. There's a need for maybe a connection. There's something going on, with that child that's making them kind of want to receive that from a stranger who's telling them the right things, who's making them feel attractive or desirable, or just saying, hey, I got $50, whatever the need is. Our predators are on there online, and like Victoria said, our kids can be in the bedroom. We think they're safe, but if they got a cell phone in their hands, they literally have a direct connection to predators.
Right.
And as parents, we have to remember that about our kiki, and we have to be aware, that just because we don't see it, it's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And
ask questions. Right. Pay attention. What's going on with your children? Starts at home too.
Yeah.
Right. Schools. Oh, I tell you, there was years ago, I was at a hotel and kind of lounging at the pool, and I saw, this was years ago, maybe about, say 15 years ago, and I saw this Caucasian gentleman with a whole bunch of little, like, they look local kids, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't look right, it didn't feel right, and I thought, in my na'au, right, I was going, okay, this is so weird. But I didn't know who to call at that time, right? I was like, what do I do with that? Like, so I went to the security guard, and I just kind of made a report, like, this looks kind of weird. Like, why is this guy with all these little kids, right? And just this one gentleman, but paying attention to your na'au too. I think now we have programs, we have people we can reach out and call if we suspect, right? We can. Parents too, like I don't know what my child is up to, but call, parents call. We have these resources out here to support you.
Yeah, I think the education piece is so important, right? Like if it's not like the better thing to do is to report, so that there can be a well check, there can be an investigation. So how many times, like maybe this time it's not going to appear like it's actually, an exploitive experience that is happening, or maybe not experience is the right word, but there's something not right in the home. But then what about the next time? Or what about the next time? Like how many times? And then all of a sudden now everything makes sense, right? Because the teacher reported it, maybe the friend reported, and then all of a sudden now this all is a big puzzle that makes sense, and now this child can get the help that they need. Because children are not gonna say, I'm being sex trafficked. They don't have the language. I mean, for goodness sake, we don't have the language at times, because this is still relatively new in the United States, right? I mean, in Hawaii, our law only came down 2016, right? So in the whole, the whole country, 2000.
Yeah, it's been years. And to piggyback off, you said that lens is important too, because that teacher could report something from their lens, which makes the impact to what could be seen, and your report from like that hotel interaction could be reported, and then we could have like an auntie or someone who says, at church or at this community center, because a lot of it, which is unseen, takes time, right? Because we're trying to develop that story that is associating to sex trafficking. Because like Tammy said, it's not always going to be or appear as sex trafficking. It could be a domestic violence situation. It could be, Rochelle and I talked earlier, and Tammy, about there's a lot of vulnerabilities that exist with sex assault, prior sex assault and child molestation, and there's child pornography, child sex abuse material. Sorry, I don't know the legal term anymore.
Sam.
Do we
The
still say
Sam
child
thing.
porn? And we're experiencing a major crisis within mental health, within housing. Some things might look like they are having a mental breakdown.
Right.
The kid is suicidal, but why?
Why?
What was happening prior? What relationships can we see would have sort of that information and make that connection? Assign a mentor, or teach that hospital setting some of the signs, or connect to the reporting line, so we could help you kind of pinpoint what you can make the referral to child welfare about.
Now, last show we had Ashley on and Leinani, and both of them shared something that was really interesting. And then it made me recall a guest speaker that I heard at a conference who was talking about community. And Ashley had said that she had started that CAX High. Yeah. Community After Exploitation, Hawaii. And Leinani talked about the same thing, right? And it made me remember, do you remember Orange is the next black?
The New Black.
Oh, the New Black? Yeah. Orange is the New Black, and Piper. Do you guys know it was a real story?
No, I didn't know. Oh, yeah, she really got arrested?
Yes.
Oh.
So I heard her speak at a conference, so Piper.
Oh.
And she has this book out. It's called Orange is the New Black. And she talks about how when she was in prison, the women would come in and then they would get paroled, they would go out, and they couldn't find community.
Yeah.
And so they would commit another crime so they could just come back to jail so that they could have that sense of community. And it's kind of the same thing that Ashley was talking about, like we have to build a community of survivors, right? And because if not, then it's like they go back to that community, because when you're being trafficked, you have your own community too.
Yeah. You sure
Right?
do.
And
It's
so
hard to go against that community, right? Because they are master manipulators embedded in that community. They're folks who have made an investment into their, I hate to say it, product. Like they're going to make their profit, and they're going to keep this and keep up with the trends before us too, And I think, and Tammy and I could speak to that, when we started talking about what even community looks like against exploitation, because it was originally community against exploitation. But we really said there's community partners against it already. There's Hale Kipa, there's the task force, there's attorney, Hale Napua, there's Susanna Wesley. But healing is hard, right? And some people don't stick around after you think you've gotten there, because it's not a one and done kind of thing. You might have been recovered or rescued from this exploitation, but who's your community? Like you said, who's there? Do your family still talk to you? Where's the employers that want to give you a job? So and then healing your body physically. Who's still around? So I think Ashley and Leinani and I and us, we just talked and we said it's important to figure out what's the after piece.
Yeah.
What can we do to
I
make
love
a
that.
healing community, not just a supportive community?
Right. And like Leinani has her healing through art, right? I mean, I just love that they're like taking something and they're like learning from their experience and saying, you know what, we're going to create something that brings forth healing, right? I love it.
I think for me is like bigger picture for me is take away the shame, because it's not like I didn't wake up and be like, oh, I'm gonna be a hoe tomorrow and I'm a hoe tomorrow. Like I didn't wake up like that, that didn't happen for me, and most of the survivors and victims, it doesn't happen like that. It's something that was done to you. And so as we heal, it's like, well, okay, so how do you heal? You heal because people love you. Right? And so as we love one another, as we take care of one another, that's how the healing happens. It's not like, oh, throw them away because they was bad kind.
Right.
Like you don't do that.
Yeah.
You love each other, and that's where that healing happens.
And
Right.
it really is that community of being non-judgmental, just accepting and just compassionate, because as I've learned, and I'm still learning, being in this position, is that these survivors, they've suffered the worst kinds of trauma. A lot of them are in their positions, where they are for various reasons, and by the time we kind of try and pick them up, on the back end, I guess, they're suffering from mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and like Victoria mentioned, a lot of them, their trafficker or abuser have just kind of cut them off from family, from support, because they need to be in control. So it's really important just to have this network of resources and support, just again, with aloha and love and just open arms and just letting them know it's okay, we're not judging. And that's really part of that whole victim-centered approach. And anytime in terms of cases getting to where it would even be ready to prosecute. I mean, it's really difficult. And Victoria will let you know, I'm really at the back end, and I'm like, you let me know. Because sometimes, a survivor is identified, they're receiving assistance, from various, service providers. And I'm just, our office, I should say, not myself, but, we're just here on the back end. You let us know when they're ready. One, to even talk to law enforcement. Two, are they even ever going to be able to come to court? But the way we view it is just as a task force, it really is a milestone and a victory, when we have a victim who is identified and receiving services, because that's just the first step, for all of them. So it's just having that group.
Another thing they mentioned was that when you take them out of that lifestyle, right? And they try to look for work. A lot of them don't have any other skills but that. And so one of the missing things was, teach us some other skills, right? We need some other skills so we can find work that can make decent money, right? So they were saying that it was, it's challenging when you don't have anything else, and then when you and your child is hungry or whatever, what do? You revert back to what you know.
Yeah, some of our systems weren't created for the very vulnerable and victimized, right? Again, we're relying on service providers, but the service providers, especially us, we want them to get to that self-sufficient, sustainable sort of mindset where they can use their transferable skills. And I'll turn it over to
thank you, girl. I was
This is your jam.
Talk to us about those skills.
So the transferable skills, I mean, we did a whole talk about it one time, and it really is, because if you think about it, you have to read a room. Like when you go into a room, you are literally sometimes on survival mode. You have to think on your feet really quick, because you don't want that trick to kill you, right? If he's unhappy or if she's unhappy or if something's not going right, you got to quickly turn that situation around. So that is a transferable skill. Like, you read the room, you got this, you know how to move. You got to manage money, you got to manage time, you have to manage your face, yourself. Like, there's a lot of transferable skills. You have to be very resourceful. You have to be quick on your feet. Like, you got to be longevity. You got to be long time on your feet. Like, there's a ton of transferable skills, right?
Oh, so, sounds like a CEO.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the work ethic, right? Staying up till 4:30 in the morning, work ethic.
You can take my job.
That's what I'm saying, is that I think we undermine at times. And so that's what Victoria, myself, Rochelle, that's what we're here for. We're here to empower the survivor into the next step. Like, okay, you're out, but what's next? Like, I think people get brainwashed in the game. They don't understand like how very valuable they are as a human being, that they have survived something horrific, that they didn't get here because they're weak. They got here because they're strong. They got here because it's over now, and here we are on the next chapter. So I think us as a group, empowering, survivors to go to the next level, to do the next thing. I think sometimes they don't actually realize the strength and the power that they actually have. And so for us to speak that into their life and to actually walk alongside them day by day, we get to do that. And it's really sometimes it's heartbreaking because you want to like give them one slap and be like, come on, let's go. Like, it's time. But trauma is hard to heal from, and it does take time. It takes love and courage to move out of that lifestyle.
Absolutely. I do have to mention that Hale Kipa also is part of service providers. So we do have a shelter for under 18-year-olds, both who identify male or female, and it's called Halelani Polua. So, in fact, Victoria used to work for us.
Yes, Halelani Polua was the baby of the community. Really understanding, we need to shed away that sort of re-victimizing the victim, right? So we don't want to, it's not as easy, I know, this is like a really long conversation. It's not easy to keep someone safe, not lock up because they have their jurisdiction or their legal or judicial proceedings say they are on runaway status, all these things. But it was an opportunity for us to learn from them, meet them where they are. It's a big Hale Kipa thing. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And just to segue just a little bit, I was given that opportunity to be at the table, right? As a lived experience expert, and Tammy was saying that Rochelle invited survivors and lived experience experts to the task force. We as a system have to create that space for everyone too, as part of the healing. If we don't afford the same opportunities to folks, then how are we going to have a healing community? How are we going to have a transferable skill survivor? And it's very impactful, because I think the success of Halelani Polua was the kids were starting to see that people knew they weren't choosing this. They weren't acting out and just wanting to talk to these strange grown men. They don't want to have to be propositioned for something because they are hungry or they need a place to stay. But they also need someone to talk to, because services were brought to Halelani Polua, like Ho'oponopono's groups and stuff. But they need to have these hard conversations and say, oh, okay, yeah, that man does this, or this man, it's not like you're at HLAC, you're gonna be fine. You don't have to worry about this anymore again. It doesn't happen that way, right? And part of shelter is having that community that is there when they show up, whether it's 2 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever. And it's safe to say, like, if you are a survivor or lived experience expert like I was, those are the seats at the tables that we want to fill, because we know the population, right? So it's there. You have HLAC. Let's do something with it.
I like what you did too, Victoria, because you also realize that sometimes they leave, right? It's not a crime, right? We got rid of that, so it's no longer a crime. There's no child prostitution. Safety plans. I love the safety plans. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that we identified was, one, you constantly have to reassess. And one of the biggest parts is stabilizing, right? What is it that brings you into this crisis, traumatic, where you're responding to it to this degree, whether it's acting out physically because you can't manage what you're feeling, right? Or it's you haven't identified the right coping skills with the right person. So somebody like that reminds you of Auntie, who used to like give you lickings or whatever. Not saying you did that, but
but
we talk about that sometimes. You don't want to hear someone that's like triggering like that tell you calm down when you haven't developed the skills to breathe or address that piece, or you don't trust anybody because you haven't been afforded the opportunity. So they're going to leave, they're going to come back, they're going to leave. I will tell you, everybody left. I mean, almost every kid at age ran, but everybody came back.
Right.
Everybody came back, because we can't stop that.
Right.
It is a process, it's reality, right? It's like people leave their jobs and then they find something that works for them when they get that clicker, or somebody wants to come back, to their job when they've learned, when they've met the right person who told them about themselves. Like, why did you leave?
We got a lot of people leave Hale Kipa and then they come back.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If it's like consulting or, training and stuff.
It's truly a process, though. It really, really is. Like, a stepping stone, a stepping stone, a stepping stone. And along the way, you're picking up all of these tools, you put it in your belt. And then when you're 19, you go, dang, I got a lot of tools. That is what Mama Victoria was talking about. That's what Miss Venus was talking about. Oh man, my prosecutor told me that a long time ago, right? And it's like all of those things, and that, you know, so we can't like minimize even the small stuffs, right? We can't just make it so like, oh, that doesn't matter. No, it all matters, all of it, everything that we're doing in this movement.
Right.
Yes.
So we plant the seed, right? We water, and somebody might come around and end up harvesting, but we all, everything we do, right, matters as part of the
I
bigger
think another
picture.
piece too, Venus, because you talked about it and you have a really great TFH program, right? I think if we start building up our community of caregivers and providers.
What is TFH?
Therapeutic foster home. Sorry, community. Therapeutic foster home. We want therapeutic foster home parents.
Yes, we do.
Or transitional home, or resource caregiver homes, or foster homes, right? Because we don't need to rely on beautiful HLAC or beautiful Pearl Haven. We do want that family setting too. So I think if we empower and train up some of these TFH parents, and there's community programs and trainers out the wazoo that wants to train these parents so they can really house and support.
We would love that, right?
Yeah.
So, which is one reason why we're leaving Kabailoa campus, right? Because, I mean, it used to be a women's prison.
Yeah.
And but we got a home now. We got a home, so we are gonna be moving to a house.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Good.
So when we open it up, which will be next month, you guys all come and we'll do a visit.
Yeah.
Over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
That's
Absolutely.
Yeah,
exciting.
we felt like we wanted the environment to be conducive to the message that we're giving these young people, right? Rather than, you know, I mean, HLAC was pretty. But it was
We
still
had to
prison.
make it work.
It was still prison.
We had to make it work. You know, we had to make it work, and I think you know, and our folks in the community knew what we were working with, and they said, you know, we can make a home here. We can make something safe here. We can, you know, provide services here. We can make it trauma informed here. You know, but at the end of the day, they knew they weren't going to be there, and they weren't getting treatment there, right? So if you want to provide that level of treatment, do it in that home environment. Congratulations. So it'll be an Eva.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to
You
be
guys
on
get
Windward
done.
side anyway. close to headquarters.
I know. Kabailoa still wants to have one out there. But, you know, as you know, shelters, when you're working with minors, 24/7, it's hard staffing 24/7 shelters, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we would see people at our meetings.
I
worked all night.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, I know. You know, but
okay, so we're almost down to the end of our show. So I want you ladies to take a minute, look into the camera, share with the community a message of empowering them, something that you would want them to know before this show ends. So who wants to start?
I can start. Mine is very short. When you said empowering, I think everyone's empowered to make the right choice. If you're an adult who's capable of making the right choice, learn our hotline numbers. Try to learn within your establishment, whether it's your business, your school, or even your therapeutic office. Know the signs and know the conversations to make that phone call. And you could possibly save and help recover someone from exploitation.
Mahalo, Victoria. How about you, Rochelle?
yeah, I just like to say, as parents, as a community, we just need to be aware, right? Please be ala, know what your keiki are doing, know who they're communicating with, who they're hanging out with, and just really be aware, so that you can make a difference by directing your child in the right direction, or just being able to, I'm losing my words, and know that there are people here, right? There's a group here, there are professionals here, there's really a really tight, actually, community here of people who care, who are just passionate and compassionate, and who understand, and who are really just wanting to help. So just please be aware of what your keiki are doing and know that there is a team here willing to help.
Oh, mahalo, Rochelle. Tammy,
They said everything.
but I
I'm
know you
thinking.
have more.
I think I was like trying to think of something so brilliant, but I think just really coming together as a community and caring for one another and loving one another, and don't shy away from just really providing that safe space for people, and reach out to any of us, right? And then anybody in the anti-trafficking movement. It's not only in Hawaii, it's across the nation. So there is a movement out there to end trafficking, and I think that all of us can do our part.
Yeah. Mahalo, Tammy.
Thank you.
So as we come to a close, once again, we have the resources, we have people who care out there. And when you think about it, gang, Hawaii, right, has the answer. It really comes down to aloha. Caring for each other, loving each other, and just being aware. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay to be ni'ele, right? To be a little bit maha'oi and ask questions so that you can, work together to end sex trafficking, human trafficking in Hawaii. Yeah? Take care of our keiki. And now remember, love on them, because if you don't love on them, somebody else is right out there waiting. And that's not the kind of love that we want our kids to have, right? So if you haven't hugged your keiki today, hug your keiki. And thank you so much for joining us at Kukakuka. Until next time, aloha. Thank you, women.
Thank you.